Week 4's come and gone. We had some surprises tonight, I would say. Not necessarily as results go, but as far as margin of victory or defeat, I guess you could say, for some of
Yeah.
our teams. I would, which one really caught your eye?
Well, obviously the one that I was at, Teddy, I was at the Anniston Hoax Bluff game. Hoax Bluff was had to rebound after just really getting just taken apart last week by Aniana. And so tonight was a huge game in terms of the region was concerned, and to see whether Hoax Bluff would be able to get back on track. And they could not get on track offensively against a very good Anniston team. And Anniston ended up shutting out Hoax Bluff 21-0. It was the first time since 2011 that Hoax Bluff had been shut out. And I mean, there were some years where Hoax Bluff, went 1-9 back to back, but they still scored. But yeah, you'd have to go back to, I think it was October, when Glencoe shut them out 20-0. So back to the drawing board for Hoax Bluff. They dropped to 2-2. They were number 6. After being number 2 in 4A, we can easily say they won't be ranked next week. And so, like I said, it's back to the drawing board in Hoax Bluff.
Yeah, I was at the Creek Bank tonight. Not necessarily shocked Ohatchee won. I am shocked at in the fashion they did win by. They ended up jumping out. Well, they won the game 56-21 over Westbrook, but it wasn't that close. It was 56-0 at one point, and just from the first play of the game, I would say Westbrook has athletes to match Ohatchee. I'm obviously number 7 for Ohatchee. Dominic Thomas is just a ball player. I mean, he's tough.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be tough for anybody to kind of match up with.
Mm-hmm.
But just the physicality of Ohatchee, they just kind of punched Westbrook in the mouth, and Westbrook never responded. So it was really tough for them. Got a couple of people joining us. I want to say hello to Landon. Hope you're doing good tonight. I'll see you soon. But run down some scores in the county. Bob Jones beats Gadsden City 24-20. Both teams were winless heading into that one, so Bob Jones picks up their first win. Gadsden City so close to picking up their first win with Ollie Smith there, but come up short tonight. Etowah Southside, another surpriser tonight.
That was a shootout.
I mean, my goodness, I think it was 42-32 at halftime. Etowah.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like every time Southside would score, Etowah would drop an 80-yard bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Just but anyways, the Blue Devils ended up pulling that one out, 56-32 over Southside. Woodland shuts out Gadsden 34-0. Wellborn shuts out Glencoe 61-0.
Glencoe has yet to score.
And Gadsden's only scored 6 points this year. Wow. We got a few teams that are just really struggling to crack the scoreboard. Wow. Sardis bounces back big with a 67-0 win over Douglas. As we said, Ohatchee, big winners over Westbrook, 56-21. Anniston shuts out Hoax Bluff 21-0. And Decatur Heritage beats Coosa 56-16.
A few of the other games that I know Albertville ended up losing at Coleman. I think it was 31-7, if I'm not mistaken. I know Boaz, they bounced back and they knocked off Pisgah. Cherokee County beat White Plains. Cedar Bluff was easily over Section. Collinsville just went all over Eider. I want to say it was like 60-6. So that was a huge bounce back win for them after getting knocked off by Fife. And then North Sand Mountain in just a tough ball game. They held on to beat Sand Rock. I can't remember. I want to say it was like 12-7.
Right, yeah. That score really kind of caught my eye. I thought North Sand Mountain would probably be able to take care of that one a little easier than what they did.
But it's tough to play at the Rock.
That is true.
So I mean, it's never a gimme for anybody when you play at Sand Rock. A few other scores that really caught my eye. Gunnersville. They are really on a roll right now. I want to say that they're 3-1 maybe on the season, maybe 4-1 on the season. They won a big shootout over Arab tonight. So
I was like that was 45-42.
45-42, I think it was. I mean, just a tremendous ball game. Some of the other games that kind of caught my eye, one in particular, because just for the fact the score itself was amazing. American Christian Academy ended up beating Montevallo tonight, I think it was 84-30. and that's who Anniston has next week. So after a big win over Hoax Bluff, they step out of region play and they play a team that hung 84 on a very good Montevallo team. Don't take anything away from Montevallo; they are a good football team. So that game next week should be really interesting. Some other games that kind of caught my eye: Spring Garden over Donahoe, 16-12. Valley Head over Galesville, 52-16. As you said, Woodland beat Gadsden 34-0. Ranburne over Cleveland, 35 to nothing. I think there was a one upset or semi upset. I think it was. It was Clay Chalkville lost to Gardendale tonight. Clay Chalkville just is not what they used to be, and so that was kind of a surprising win in terms of just around the area. And if I'm not mistaken, Vestavia lost tonight to Mountain Brook, I believe it was, and that was a battle of ranked teams as well.
A big battle of ranked teams of 6A. Oxford heads down to Pinson Valley, and they won 34-33.
Wow. That's a huge upset. I believe Pinson Valley was ranked number 2 in the state, and I want to say Oxford was what, 5?
I want to say, yeah,
in the
right.
state. So that's a huge win, and especially to go to Pinson Valley and win that game. Folks, thanks for joining us tonight. We try to get on as close to 10:30 as possible, so that way you wouldn't have to stay up too late to watch us. I'm Kevin Taylor. This is Teddy Couch. Be sure to go online to gadsdentimes.com. You can check out our game stories and also check out our photo galleries from tonight's games and all the other games. And matter of fact, thinking of it, you'll also see Hoax Bluff's homecoming court in my photo gallery tonight because it was homecoming. Not a very good homecoming for Hoax Bluff.
Well, that's tough. Daniel chimes in, says he didn't see Etowah giving up 32 points to Southside tonight. Man,
I didn't either.
I didn't either. It's really impressive with Southside. I remember the first time I saw that update, I kind of checking, and I want to say Southside just returned an interception for a touchdown, go up 19-14. I was just kind of had to rub my eyes to see, oh my goodness, is that like legit?
Yeah. When I saw it was 42-32 going into the fourth quarter, I was like, wow, what's going on?
42-32 at the half, and then nobody scores in the third.
So I mean,
it's crazy.
My question is, what happened? Did Etowah did they come in a little bit too overconfident?
Maybe. You also have to think Southside had 2 weeks prepared for this game. And yeah. I know Michael Rich Jr. had 2 deep touchdown passes to score their first 2 touchdowns before that pick six. If I remember looking on Greg's Twitter timeline correctly, and maybe they saw something that they felt they could exploit. But man, shout out to the Panthers because they had every reason to lay down and they did.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, obviously they're not going to be happy with a morale victory.
No,
I mean, they're still without a win. They got a long ways to go, but let's be real. The top half of their schedule is pretty tough in terms of the region,
Yeah.
And it's going to get easier than they had in those last 5 games, which is something that we saw from them last year. Can they kind of get on a roll, I guess, to possibly make a playoff spot?
It doesn't get any easier for Etowah next week because they've got Fort Payne next week. Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, Fort Payne's undefeated.
Yeah, Josh actually said Etowah Fort Payne going to be big, and then Zach says Fort Payne may slip out of there with a win.
Yeah, that's going to be a great ball game and one that we'll definitely be at. Just some of the other games coming up next week. Teddy and I will be going to Sand Rock because Spring Garden is playing Sand Rock on Thursday night. Fort Payne goes to Etowah. Pleasant Valley goes to Gadsden. Hoax Bluff goes to Glencoe. Sardis is at Geraldine. That's a dangerous ball game right there too, because Geraldine is playing pretty good ball right now. Southside goes to Helena. West End's at Ragland. Victory goes to Coosa Christian. Boaz goes to Albertville. Jacksonville's at Piedmont. Wow, that could be a very good game too for being non-region. Weaver goes to Cherokee County, and Galesville goes to Cedar Bluff. So, I mean, there's some pretty big non-region games next week.
Yeah, Zach says Edwall's defense has some deficiencies that last year's didn't. Well, I mean, yeah, you have the guys they lost. I mean, you had two D1 guys, and then you had multiple others on top of that were all state. So yeah, they're gonna have some growing pains. But let's be honest.
That defense
has played well so far this year. And of course, tonight they gave up some bombs. There's some things they can fix, but Edwall's sitting pretty right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, like you said, the back half of their region schedule is not that taxing. So they've got a pretty good road to end up closing out that region.
Zach said if it comes down to a field goal, he's gonna leave before Payne.
Yeah.
That's a way to really go out there. And
yeah. Wow. Oh, wow.
Patrick says Edwall playing a lot of kids both ways hurts them in 5A football. Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with that to an extent, but those kids are used to it.
I've seen a lot of kids play both ways in 6A.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't quite buy that argument.
And then Daniel with a great point. Edwall had a ton of injuries tonight. I heard Trent Davis had a high ankle sprain. Isaiah Atchison came out with an injury, and I want to say on the way in, I heard Toby Camp went down. I don't know the extent of what happened with him. I don't know if it was serious or not, but Edwall had some injuries tonight, so they're gonna have to rest up. But fortunately for them, the next 2 weeks is out of region, so obviously you don't want to lose them. But if you do, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
You have time to rest up.
Right.
These 2 wins, if you get them, great. If you don't, whatever, you still got region play.
Yeah, like I said, next week. I mean, I'm not saying that these are throwaway games, but
they're still fun games, and they're going to be fun to go to.
Right.
But if they lose them, it's not the end of the world.
Right. I mean, now if it comes down to a tiebreaker or whatnot, the Fort Payne Etowah game does have some play in there because Fort Payne is a higher classification team. But like I said, these are in no way I would want to say throwaway games, but they don't have as much impact in terms of the playoffs as say tonight's and in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these teams, they've got an opportunity to kind of rest some folks. Now, do they? I don't know.
Yeah. See, Daniel says Toby came back in, so he was fine. Let's see. People talking about the 99 Etowah Blue Devils coming up on 20-year anniversary of winning their championship.
Yeah.
The reason they said that is because Zach mentioned that they had a lot of players play both ways, and obviously it worked out pretty decent for them.
Yeah.
Nicole wants to know about a Gadsden City recap. I'm not exactly too sure in depth about that game. I know it was never more than a touchdown difference between the two.
Right.
I know Gadsden City's still without Dericky Wright. He's only played in one drive this whole season. He played against Sparkman, got hurt, did not play last week, and did not play this week either. So Gadsden City, they had a chance late. Or no, I take that back. I think Bob Jones was able to run the clock out at the last minute or so. Gadsden City didn't have it. I think they had one timeout left. They used it, but just not able to, get the ball back to try to ride on the field and score.
Right.
So.
Well, and the one thing that I've seen out of Gadsden City is that their ability or lack thereof of offense is tough to overcome, and that's the biggest thing that I see on paper. Now, many times over, there are things that paper just will not show you,
right?
Unless you actually see them live. But having seen Gadsden City play already a few times, they just can't quite get in a groove offensively, and that's what's hurt them so much.
Mm-hmm. Adam, we'll get to that about Hoax Bluff, about being one-dimensional. We're going to hopefully Michael, he's the guy behind the camera. He was at Gadsden City tonight, and if we're able to get him on here, he'll maybe be able to give a little insight on that Gadsden City game.
We'll see.
But he's trying to get that mic working right now. Yeah. But we'll go on to Hoax Bluff real quick. Adam wants to know simply what has happened to Hoax Bluff.
Well, and that was the question that I posed to Mike Robertson tonight. That's the question of the year right now, this early in the season, is, okay, what's happened to Hoax Bluff? Injuries, lots of injuries. You've got an offensive line that has had a few folks that have gone down, and then you've got a inexperienced offensive line trying to block, and if you when you have inexperience there in the trenches, it's going to show.
Yeah.
And obviously, Aniana kind of showed some of those weaknesses. And then the simple fact, Anniston is not a bad football
And the
team.
same thing with
They
Aniana
are
as well.
a good football team. Aniana is a good football team.
Mm-hmm.
So should we be surprised that Hoax Bluff has lost these last back-to-back games? In a way, yes, because we're all kind of become used to Hoax Bluff winning, you know. But then you also have to realize after last season, Hoax Bluff lost a lot of all-state players,
especially at the skill positions.
Yeah,
and that's showing right now.
and it is really showing right now. They don't have a guy that they can really throw to that can catch it consistently.
Ashton Gulledge isn't a quarterback that's just going to sling it all over the field. But tonight he was 5 of 18 for 55 yards, and Ashton Gulledge is not a 5 of 18 quarterback.
No, he's not.
I mean, he is a very good quarterback. He can do it with his feet, which helps him out whenever he has to throw the ball. He can get the job done. They're just struggling there at the skill positions.
Yeah.
Daniel wants to know how many yards Meads had tonight.
101, and I think it was, I forget how many carries he had
19
tonight.
carries.
19 carries, 101 yards.
According to the box score, Anderson totaled 378 yards of offense to Hoax Bluff's 178.
Yeah, I believe every bit of it too. And you had Hoax Bluff had to punt 7 times tonight. So also fumbles. You had Meads fumbled twice and lost both of them. One of those fumbles ended up being turned into a scoop and score for a touchdown, and that really put the game away. Hoax Bluff was down 14-0 at the half, and being down 2 scores, you feel like you're in the ball game. But then in that second half, on that fumble and that scoop and score, suddenly you're down 21-0. Your back is against the wall. You got to do something, and Hoax Bluff just couldn't catch up.
Zach says he don't remember them being relevant last year, were they? And I think he's talking about Aniston. I don't think that results-wise it didn't show, but I've had a lot of coaches tell me, watch out for Aniston.
Aniston has won won 7 of their last 9 ball games, dating back to about middle part of last year. This football team is dangerous, folks. Just remember, Uncle Kevin just told you, be sure to look out for Aniston. They can make some big-time noise in the playoffs because they've got some really nice players out there. Their quarterback's really good. He's a shifty guy, great athlete. They've got a nice running back, and really their defense is pretty daggum stout. There's one kid, I want to say it was either number 55 or maybe number 41 or number 40, and he was everywhere. And then of course Hunley, who was the kid who scooped and scored and got the touchdown for Aniston, he not only had a scoop and score, but he also had an interception that really kind of put the game away. So I mean, Aniston's got a nice team.
Adam, we'll get to that question in a minute. He wants to know, Gadsden and Glencoe, are they low on talent? But we have Michael. He'd give a little bit of insight on that Gadsden City game now.
Yeah, let's see if you guys can hear me out in Facebook land. This is Michael. I am currently off camera. First of all, talking about Welborn, talking about if they were relevant last year. They went 5-5 last year and didn't make the playoffs. So, that's kind of a thing that looks like they ended the game on the season on a 3-game loss streak. So, I don't know that this year is totally out of the blue. I remember a couple years ago they were pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some background on Welborn. But I was the guy at the Gadsden City game, And with the exception of a couple of big plays, it was a pretty even matchup. There were a couple of times that I remember one time Gadsden City scored, whether it was by field goal or touchdown, and then gave up an 80-something yard kickoff return, and Bob Jones went on down and scored. So there were a couple of big plays like that. I remember. Bob Jones scored on a fleet flicker, double reverse, some kind of trickeration. That was a big thing, and just a couple of defensive lapses. I know that Bob Jones was short on timeouts, and then they managed to get a score right before halftime. Like they moved down the field and kicked a 29-yard field goal with 1.1 seconds left before halftime. So that made it a one touchdown game. They were ahead 17-10 at halftime, and to Gadsden City's credit, they came out in the second half and tied it with some big plays. DeMarcus Macon caught up with some of his wide receivers, like Jaden Lawson. That was a 57-yard touchdown pass that was it was a gem. And I tell you, between Lawson and some of the other players like Trevante Blunt, they did some work yards after catch. And toward the end of the game, they were driving down toward the red zone. There were 5 minutes or so left, and they just couldn't. They stalled it out a little bit and had to kick a field goal, and got the ball back with 3-something minutes left to go, and faced 4th and 2 near midfield and just didn't pick it up, and tried to use timeouts to kind of run the clock out, and it just didn't work out for them. So they've got a week off and gonna have a chance to still pick up that W.
The one thing that I noticed, Michael, and you can correct me about this, is the one deficiency that Gadsden City has is that they don't have a stud running back like they have had in years past. You don't have Woods, you don't have some of these other guys that have been able to tote the mail for Gadsden City. And here in the last few weeks, I've noticed that they've tried to find just that one particular person. I know that I think C.J. Miller is the leading rusher for Gadsden City with a little over 100 yards in so many ball games. And in 7A, that's just not going to get it.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that Miller had a rushing touchdown. He seemed to be kind of the most effective back, because I know he's a bigger guy and kind of a load
and a young guy.
I didn't look to see how old he was, but he had a couple of good rushes and seemed to be pretty tough to bring down. But he also didn't get the ball on that 4th down play at the end. They kind of tried to get it to number 4.
Trey Blunt.
Tried to get him around the outside and sort of try to speed it, and it just didn't work, and that was the game. So I think you're kind of right with that, because this is the first time I've seen Gadsden City play, and they just it seems like if you had that bell cow running back, 4th and 2 with a game on the line, you can give it to him and get 2 yards. And so.
Well, as so many football coaches have said, and I'll say it too, football is a very simple game. It's all about blocking and tackling. If you can block well and you can tackle well, you can have a good shot of winning a football game. And right now, there are some football teams in our area and around the state that just cannot block to save their lives. And that's getting their defenses in a huge hole, because when you have to go 3 and out punt, 3 and out punt, 3 and out punt, your defense is going to be on the field for a long time, and they're eventually going to give up points.
Mm-hmm. And still, like you said, model team struggling. 6 teams out of 10 in this county still without a win.
Yeah.
2 of those, Adam was wanting to know about Gadsden and Glencoe. Are they just low on talent? And if you look around at all boy sports for both schools right now, they're just struggling across
They really
all
are.
male sports right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they really are. The struggle isn't just in football; it is across the board. And it's I hate to say it, but no, I'm not. It's sad to see. It really is.
What
I feel bad for the kids. I feel bad for those schools because and don't and take this to heart. Gaston, Glencoe, some of these other schools continue to support these kids. Just because they're not winning doesn't mean that they don't deserve the support for you guys to come every Friday night and cheer them on to the best of your ability.
It's something that happens at school, especially a smaller school like a Gadsden or a Glencoe. The talent pool kind of comes and goes.
Yeah.
If you go back even 5 years ago, I was talking about this the other day with somebody. You go probably the best team in this county is Glencoe.
Yeah.
All right, one of the worst teams in this county, in terms of results, is probably Hoax Bluff.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how things flip flop. Gadsden's a playoff regular about 5 years ago. Gadsden City making semifinal runs 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Things are just kind of flipped around. So it's just I just find that interesting. But Elizabeth wants to know, as of right now, do you see anyone really taking off, or is this more of a survival of the fittest season? I think 6 teams are just worried about trying to get a win right now.
Yeah. They really are. Yeah. I think at this point, we're about to hit the midway point of the season, and it's gut check time for some of these schools. Hoax Bluff. Yeah, I'm going to put you on blast right now. It's gut check time.
The good thing for Hoax Bluff, the next 3 weeks for them are not the toughest. They have Glencoe next week, and then I want to say they have Asheville and then Cleveland County. Now Cleveland County seems to be better than they have been in years past, but still,
they're not.
That's a pretty decent 3-week stretch compared to what they've had the last 2.
Yeah, they're not the Heflin of old, because I remember back in the Stone Ages when I was fairly young, Heflin was a team to fear on Friday nights, and they just, now that they've consolidated to become Cleveland County, they're not as strong as they have been. Uh, there's a number of teams that really they've got to decide whether they want to finish strong or not. Hoax Bluff's one of them. Sardis, you're another one. You've got to decide whether you really want to close this thing out and try to get into the playoffs or not.
67-0 wins, a great rebound from a 58-13 loss last week at Etowah. Sardis, coming up, Sardis has they're at Geraldine next week in a non-region. Then they step back into region play the following week with Alexandria. That's a toughie. For me, in my opinion, Alexandria and Sardis are the two kind of battling for that second seed right now.
Yeah.
I might have to give the edge to Alexandria right now.
Yeah.
But those are kind of, I would say that game is going to determine who your second seed is.
Yeah.
Southside coming up. I mean, like I said, their schedule's been very tough, and they're sitting 2 field goals away from being 2-2 right now. But they're not. They're 0-4.
Yeah.
They got to go to Helena next week in non-region. But after that, they have Douglas, Alexandria, Boaz, Crossville. 4 of those games are very winnable.
And if you remember, and I know Panther fans, I know you remember, we were sitting at this point. They had come off a disappointing loss to Helena, and then the next thing you know, they won out and went how deep in the playoffs?
The second round.
Yeah, and we all just went, what just happened here?
Wow.
So I mean, it's not impossible. It's definitely not impossible for Southside. The schedule favors them. So and I'll have to say the schedule favors Hoax Bluff too.
Yeah.
You do have a that last game of the season there in October. That's the toughie.
Mm-hmm.
You got Jacksonville. I think in week 10 or week 9. And that's a toughie. So
that's a game in years past where if Hoax Bluff lost it, obviously they want to win the game, but you're still hosting the first round of playoffs because it's been 1-2 with those two teams. But now you really can't afford to lose much region games anymore. It's not the end of the world for Hoax Bluff. It's still just week 4. And like I said, the next 3 weeks is a pretty good stretch for the Eagles, especially considering what they've been playing. But that center game is to one for me for Hokes Bluff. They have to win that game.
They
Cherokee
really
County.
do.
They have to beat Cherokee County,
and that's never an easy ball game to win.
That's a big rivalry.
Not for Hokes Bluff. That's a toughie.
We have some people chime in about Gardendale saying they know they're not in our area, but really want
big win over Clay Chalkville. But I'll say this: Clay Chalkville is not the Clay Chalkville that your grandma knew last year. They are not nearly as good as they have been. So to see them lose to Gardendale, I'm not entirely surprised.
Best team Etowah will play this year is Fort Payne. Biggest test for them, and I think it's good for Etowah too. That their biggest test is out of the region. Like I said earlier, if they lose it, they don't want to lose it, but it's not the end of the world. So, a lot of great non-region games next week. It's going to be a fun week for sure.
It will be, and like I said, just to remind you, Thursday night, Spring Garden is at Sandrock, and then next Friday, Fort Payne's at Etowah, like we mentioned. Pleasant Valley's at Gadsden, Hokes Bluff's at Glencoe, Sardis is at Geraldine, Southside goes to Helena, West End goes to Raglan, Victory Christian is at Coosa, Boaz goes to Albertville, Jacksonville goes to Piedmont, and Weaver goes to Cherokee County, and then Galesville to Cedar Bluff. So, next week we got time to kind of digest and then get ready for the second half of the season.
Yeah, we got no Gadsden City or Westbrook next week. Both really need those bye weeks. Westbrook will have Ranburne the following week, if I'm not mistaken, and that one will be for the second seed in that region.
Yeah, it will be. You got Ranburne's at comes to Westbrook. Gadsden City goes to James Clemens. And then they go back on the road on October 11th to Florence before they come home against Huntsville. I'm flipping through here and I'm trying to find a win for Gadsden City, folks. And right now, maybe October 25th when they play Grissom. And that's kind of a trap game because that's homecoming. And that means a lot of distraction. So, I don't know. And then, of course, you close out the season against Clay Chalkville. And like I said, Clay Chalkville isn't as good as people think they are. But still, there's a lot of football left to play, folks.
A lot of things to figure out.
Yep, absolutely. We can start looking at the playoffs and who folks may see in the opening round. There's I would definitely say, some of these regions, I'll dare say it, last week, the winner of the Collinsville 5 game, that was for the region championship, without a doubt. So, Fife's going to be number 1, Collinsville, I'm pretty confident it's going to be number 2. Etowah's region, it may end up to be pretty well decided here in a couple weeks.
Lauren wants to know when Southside's homecoming is. Do you know off the top of your head?
No, I do not.
If not, we'll get back with you in the comment section when we get off live, and we'll let you know what their homecoming game is.
Yeah.
But I believe we kept everybody long enough.
Yep. I know I've got some work. I know you got some work.
Yeah, head to the www.gadsdentimes.com. I just threw it back with the www. I don't know why I did that. You don't need to do that anymore. But anyways, I guess you can. Just whatever.
That's because you're old.
Yeah,
you decided to go that route.
Yeah, I'm pretty old.
Yeah.
You have more hair than I do, and you got me in years by a bit, don't you? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren, if you're still out there, I just did a quick search, and it looks like Southside's homecoming game is going to be Douglas on Friday, October 4th. So I don't have a schedule in front of me, and if they actually do play Douglas on October 4th, then yeah, that's homecoming.
I would dare say that's a winnable ball game. So that should be a happy homecoming for Southside.
Yeah, if Southside cannot get Helena next week, they will get a win on homecoming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can go ahead and mark that one down. Folks, our time is up. We thank you for yours. And be sure to join us again next week. Thanks again.